Hi, and thanks for joining me on here. Today, I'd actually like to be sounding a warning to all parents in diaspora. We have to be aware how we teach our children to hate each other. Because by teaching them to hate each other, we're actually enabling racism to have a negative impact on our children's life. And I'd like to go into this further. Very often when we come here in this diaspora, many of us lose our sense of identity, our self-esteem, and then we kind of feel isolated. So what do? We often join African churches or African social organizations. And very often these churches, African churches in diaspora, they focus heavily on a kind of social life. It's even hard to determine if that is actually a church or a social club you are attending. Because while they may have a service for 1 or 2 hours, the most energy, time, and effort is concentrated on parties and social gathering. Then you see that these churches are being run in a cult-like manner because the people at the helm of affairs are also suffering under racism and also looking for recognition and esteem. And so they start imposing their leadership on their members. They start holding meetings upon meetings, secret meetings, using all methods and strategies to run that church like a cult almost. Then, what happens in most of our African churches in diaspora? You will see enmity breaking up between families, people attacking each other verbally, physically. Sometimes the enmity caused in such churches cannot even be repaired. I can't even describe just how bad it is. It's something you really should have had to join to see the amount of spiritual abuse and an enmity that takes place in African churches in diaspora. Now, the societies, yes, they are somewhat better, I would say, because the spiritual aspect is not there. And when the spiritual aspect is not there, you can't sort of like change the people as much as in a church. But whatever the case, there's also enmity there. Now, what do most parents do? You actually went to a church or a social organization to unite with Africans as brothers and sisters. You people end up in enmity. Then you now transfer this enmity to your children. Sometimes it may not even be from a church or a social organization. You might just be living in the same neighborhood and have a problem. You transfer the enmity onto your children. Then you have to go to the schools and observe what really happens amongst black children here. Just to give an instance, about 2 years ago when my son started on a school, he was about 11 then, on a secondary school. So this school has a sport profile, and most of the children want to be in the sport class. I was so glad when I found out that like 6 of the children in that class were black. I was like, wow, my son is really going to feel at home here. It's not going to be discrimination. But to my shock and horror, I had never experienced anything in a class like I experienced in that class. Not really personally for my son, but these children were always fighting amongst each other. And the girls especially, because girls, boys, they can fight, and forget, but girls, they really plan their stuff. They were constantly running to the principal's office to report. Constantly. They would make a Facebook group just to abuse one child. They would gang up, sometimes even when the white children want to have an issue with a black child. These white children will pick one or two black children to be on their side, and those two black children will be the ones giving the pressure on the other black children. It was always an issue. Then most of those children, their parents were living almost like in the same neighborhood. The problem will go home, the parents will settle it there. The next day it will start again in the school. And of course, it was now for other parents, the parents of the white children. They started to see our black children as a nuisance and a problem. And every day the teachers were complaining. Now what I did was just, after that year, not that my son was really directly involved, but he was always being scratched by it too. I put him on a sport academy because he wanted to do sports anyway, and I just wanted to cut off that connection. And there are so many cases like that. I had a son that he started in a new school, he was 16 then, and just trying to fit in. Then this boy, because I had been in a church with his parents, and there had been kind of like enmity, not that we even had any issue together seriously or anything, just being on opposite camps. This boy saw my son sitting in the cafeteria, went to act like he was embracing him, and stuck a paper on which was written "homo" on my son's back. And my son walked around the school with that paper, and everybody kept laughing at him. Until after some time, a girl told him, "Do you know what is on your back?" Now, I don't know if that boy ever told his parents what happened. But you can't even begin to imagine for how long my son suffered under that one action that boy took. Often we talk about racism, but no white child had ever done such a thing to my child before. It was really awful. And all this came out of joining an African church, wanting to unite, and then hating on each other. So we really have to ask ourselves, what is it that this society is doing to us? What is this society doing to us that we hate ourselves so much? Why can't we unite? Why can't we work? We're facing so much racism here. Why can't we join together and help each other to grow? Why are we always on a mission of destruction? Why is it that no matter where we gather, there must be quarrel and fight? If you are a member of an organization and you are the helm of affairs, you are viciously hanging on to that position. Nobody is paying you salary, nothing. But you almost want to be worshipped there. You will block every member that wants to make any meaningful contribution just so that you will be worshipped on that position. The same thing with some members. You will be in an organization. You will never make any meaningful contribution, but just out there to destroy other members or leaders trying to do something. And then we say we are uniting. And in the process of uniting, We are destroying each other, carrying that hatred and feeding it to our children. If you go now to the schools, black children are hating on black children, and it's very, very rampant. It's really rampant, and it's really a problem. And I know that most people are not talking about it, but it's really happening now. If there's any problem there, and there's another black child there, be sure that that black child is involved. Be sure that that black child is involved. Even remember an incident when my daughter came home in primary 1 crying. Mama, they're always laughing at me. I'm black, my hair is curly. Especially one girl, she kept calling this name. When I got to the school, it was a black child. Yes, she had a bit of soft curly hair, but she was black. And that's the way, if you talk to other African parents, you keep seeing the problems among black children. So please, African parents in diaspora, if we can, even if we can't let go of this our mentality, why are we feeding it to our children, this hatred? Like a witchcraft, we're feeding it to our children. And we don't realize that we're hurting our children and we're hurting their progress. Like, for instance, in that school my son was going to when he was in the sport class with 6 black children. After that said, my little daughter joined the school 2 years later. There was not a single black child in the sport class again. So that right or privilege of being in a sport class was taken for them. And about 12 black children wanted to be in that sport class. They didn't take a single one. Because obviously after what they saw there, they didn't want it again. Because the sport class normally goes on trips for sports, skiing and all that. And if there's no unity in the group, such things can't function. So that's how it was messed up for the black children. Why? Because these children have taken the hatred fed to them by their parents and are using it to hate themselves. So please, once more, if you're a black parent, stop feeding your child with hatred. That's witchcraft. There's no other way to describe it. It's witchcraft. And you're destroying not only the other child, but your own child as well. I hope this message can have an impact somewhere. And if you like, please do subscribe to my videos.